So hi Rexy. Thank you so much for having and coming on and being a part of the Expo.
Thank you for having me. I love it.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Rexy, this is one of the talented Bahamian female empowered bosses in the Bahamas, and she's doing amazing things at Western Air. But I know that nobody can tell your story better than yourself. So if you could tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do at Western Air and what you do in your free time, because I know you have some exciting projects that you do personally as well.
Thanks again for having me, Nakia. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Mastic Point, North Andros, my family and I. And I am an aviation and business attorney by trade and also VP of Operations and General Counsel at Western Air. And it is a family owned and operated airline since 2001. And we fly domestically throughout the Bahamas, and we have plans on going internationally as well. And on the side, you can see, doing a lot of music and dance stuff for fun and to keep myself, entertained really. So I would definitely call myself an island girl at heart, even though of course I'm also here physically now, moving back to the Bahamas about 5 or 6 years ago from California.
Excellent. And you're being a bit humble because I've seen the music, I've seen some of the amazing things that you're doing. And it's amazing, especially you seeing a young Bahamian woman, making a name for herself around the world. And I've seen you in some magazines where they're, highlighting, the amazing things you're doing in aviation. And you're a pioneer in this industry, especially as a young woman of color coming from an island nation like the Bahamas.
The aviation industry is not that big, right? And outside of that, and what I mean by that, of course, the industry is huge, but what I mean is in terms of personnel and knowing different factors, there's really only so many airlines within the region, and there's really only so many airlines even globally. Of course, all the majors from the US and around the world. And so it is really important for us to tell our story as well as provide consistent service and let that be a part of our story. And the more that people have been able to know about Western Air, know how it started with my family, I think it's added a lot of depth to our airline and kind of what we're trying to achieve and what we have been able to achieve thus far. I always say that it's definitely not a solo effort, it's a team effort. It's one that requires a lot of dedication every day of the year. And I'm just happy to be a part of it and happy that we've come this far. And, by the grace of God, I'm glad that we are able to continue.
Perfect. I would like to ask you a little bit later on about the ins and outs of how it is to run an airline. But before that, I know that you have been a part of Western Air and the travel and aviation community since you were a little girl. I think I read an interview that you said you started at 12. Has that being immersed so young into that travel industry inspired you to a love of travel within you?
Yeah, the Bahamas has such a unique geographic location. We are separated by water. We're all on these little islands. And so it's actually not too uncommon when you're much younger, especially being from Andros, that you would have had an experience jumping on a charter and going from Andros to Nassau. And so I'm grateful for that experience, but I recognize that it is kind of synonymous with where we're living and have that ability to kind of puddle jump, as they would say, And I think the love of travel was certainly instilled in me very young. My family is an aviation family. My dad is originally a private pilot, and so really being around that has certainly fostered my love for travel and for aviation. And outside of my parents, I have a whole slew of family members that are in the hospitality industry or the airline industry. And so it really, it resonates with me since, a very young age.
Awesome, awesome. And you speak so passionately about, Western Air and the work that you do. Obviously, many of us have traveled on Western Air throughout the Family Islands, but we have no idea what makes an airline actually run. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like behind the scenes at Western Air?
Yeah. there are a lot of clear divisions or departments that all kind of work together for their functions. And really what it boils down to is a lot of communication. That communication can be pleasant or it can be not pleasant, but it really boils down to us communicating with the various departments to ensure that we're working together for one specific goal, which is to provide quality, consistent, on-time service to our passengers. And, you know, the idea is to continuously improve upon what you're doing every day and to be able to provide people with the same experience that they can rely on and they can depend on. And I would like to say that we certainly have done that and we continue to improve on that every day. Yeah.
Excellent. And just a little tidbit. I actually used to be terrified of flying. And I got a job where I had to go to the various family islands. And Western Air is one of the first flights that I took when they actually forced me on a plane. So that's a little interesting tidbit.
You know, my mom has a fear of flying to this day. I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter how often she flies. I think it's just a nerve thing. What will help is actually sitting in the flight deck and you'll feel a bit more comfortable. So we'll have to arrange that soon.
I actually just started imagining I was in a car and that somehow it made it click.
Yes.
Now, I have a little bit of a question. I know in the past few months, you know, the hospitality, aviation, the entire industry has faced some challenges as well as the world. I just want to know, how has Western Air been, you know, coping and dealing in the past few months? And have you made any changes to the way that you operate and, you know, provide a service to your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. We had to make changes, we had to adapt, and certainly had to, you know, make a lot of tough decisions that was important to for the long term or the longevity of the company and for our team. You know, right away, the Bahamas is not an exception in terms of the impact that has been felt as a result of this pandemic. And so we did, as soon as, you know, word started to be more clear about what this was, is that we wanted to ramp up on all of our sanitization and our cleaning policies and procedures and really boost that department and ensure that we are sanitizing the aircrafts after every flight, before and after, and really just making our locations as well safe and for our passengers as well as for our team. But outside of that, of course, we had to consolidate our schedule to ensure that we are still providing daily flight services, but however, it's not as frequent in terms of during the day, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but on the normal basis, we fly almost every hour on the hour. And so it has been a change of pace, and we're still trying to balance the interests of wanting to give our passengers that flexibility in terms of times, but at the same time, you have to make economical decisions to ensure that you are, you know, not doing a wasted flight, right? So I would say in terms of adapting our schedule to what our passengers need the most, as well as being aware of the change in the volume has been one of the major overall changes that we've had to make.
Excellent. And I know that, you know, you mentioned you used to have hourly flights. So you're a massive part of the Bahamian travel community and you connect Bahamians who are in the Providence with the Family Islands and vice versa. What do you see as the future for Western Air, and where do you think you're going to be, you know, what would years going forward look like? I know it's kind of hard to predict, but what do you envision as the future for Western Air?
Well, I do not take for granted the importance of improvement. And when I say improvement, I'm not saying that to say that I'm not proud of where we're at now, because I definitely am. But there's so much that we can really just boost the full-on passenger experience. And I would love to see, you know, we're in the process of rebuilding our Freeport terminal that was damaged during Hurricane Dorian. And we would also be interested in other facilities, you know, in different family islands eventually, and to just continue to connect the domestic destinations. And also we're about 65 to 70% completed with our US certification to be able to
Awesome.
internationally between the US and the Bahamas. And so we're looking forward to that process and starting that process and really providing that same quick, flexible, fast pace travel experience. And we're kind of I've always said, a no frills airline. We get you to where you want to be. And our objective is to do that on time with your luggage. And of course, number one, safely. And so we want to be able to just continue to optimize that to the best of our ability by, I always say, by the grace of God. Maybe that's the Grammy in me. Be able to proceed in that way. Yeah.
Excellent. And you mentioned someplace that's near and dear to my heart, Grand Bahama. And you also mentioned that you're currently living in Grand Bahama. And I know that the island has faced its fair share of misconceptions and challenges. Can you tell us a little bit about what your experience has been like, living on the island, experience the Grand Bahamian hospitality, and, what you might like to tell persons who don't necessarily understand the Grand Bahama as a whole?
Yeah. When I moved back to the Bahamas, I recognized really quickly that Freeport was the best place for me. Mm-hmm. And, I like to consider myself a city girl, but at the same time, I have, old fashioned values and some sort of, well, I'm a bit contemporary as well, but I also still like to have certain amenities. And I think Freeport offers that balance of, no shading at all to Nassau, because I do have my fun moments in Nassau, but offering that ability to have the amenities that, you would like, or that you feel you would need at the grocery stores, obviously the flexibility to travel here closer to the US and all of those different aspects of it. So Freeport has obviously gone through quite a bit in the last few months, but I will say, and of course, Abaco, they have been incredibly resilient and also still welcoming to everyone who, continues to visit. And so I'm grateful to be here in Grand Bahama, and I'm 100% committed to building back what was here and more previously, because I think this place has a lot of potential, and it just has all of the great elements, and it just needs to be connected with the right people and the right energy to really revitalize the place once again. Because I always hear these magnificent stories about Grand Bahama from the 70s and the 80s and how it was the place to be. And I could see why. The location, the beaches, it really has a lot to offer. And so I look forward to a lot of, economic progress in Grand Bahama, hopefully in the years to come.
Awesome. And Rexy, you've been amazing, but I just have one more question for you. In terms of the overall travel and hospitality industry, are you optimistic about, travel and the future of travel as a whole?
I am absolutely optimistic about the travel industry, about the tourism industry, about the airline industry specifically. I am, because you hear everyone talk and you look on social media, the urge to want to travel and to see someplace outside of the four corners of your home is there. Mm-hmm. And I think once we're able to stabilize and really get this health challenge under control, I think there will be a burst of energy to travel and to see new places, and whether that's domestically or internationally. So I look forward to that day. It might take, a bit of time. Mm-hmm. And what's important is ensuring that you are making the right decisions to be effective and hold strong and still provide quality service or product, whatever it is that you are providing during this time. But eventually, I strongly believe that it will be back, and it will be back strong.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rexy. I think I've learned so much about the aviation community as well as the ins and outs of Western Air. And I thank you so much for taking the time to, just share a little bit about, what you do and what the company is doing in the future as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.